All right, let's talk about something you might have heard about or maybe even experienced. You get a brand new denture. It fits like a glove, but then a few years down the road, it starts to feel loose. What's going on? Well, the answer is probably not what you think. We're going to dive into the mystery of the disappearing jawbone. Yeah, it's such a common story, right? Everything's great, life is good, and then boom, the slipping, the rocking, that feeling of it just not being secure anymore. Now, your first thought is probably there's something wrong with the denture. But what if the problem isn't the denture at all? What if it's something happening way, way deeper? And here's the big reveal. The problem? It's almost never the denture. The real culprit is this slow, kind of silent process that's happening to the very foundation that denture sits on. We're talking about the jawbone itself. So this process actually has a pretty technical sounding name: alveolar resorption. I know, sounds complicated, but I promise the core idea behind it is actually super simple. Okay, think about it like this. Your jawbone basically has a use it or lose it policy. See, your natural teeth, their roots are constantly working, stimulating the bone, telling it, hey, we need you, stay strong. But when those teeth are gone, that signal just stops. And your body, which is super efficient, goes, well, I guess we don't need this bone anymore. And it starts to break it down and take it away for other uses. It literally just starts to melt away over time. And here's the thing, this isn't a one and done deal. After the initial healing, the jawbone keeps shrinking by about 0.5% to 1% every single year. Now I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but think about it. Over 10 or 20 years, that adds up to a huge, dramatic loss of the very ridge that your denture needs to hold on to. So what does all this bone loss actually look like in the mouth? Well, it usually leads to two really common, really challenging situations that dentists have to deal with. They call them flat ridges and flabby ridges. Okay, so a flat ridge is pretty much what it sounds like. The jawbone has just worn away, leaving this flat, smooth surface with almost nothing for the denture to grip. It's like trying to get traction on ice. But a flabby ridge? Oh man, that's a whole other level of tricky. That's when the bone underneath is gone, and what's left is just the soft, movable gum tissue. Trying to make a stable denture on that, it's literally like trying to build a house on a waterbed. Just no stability. So what do you do when the foundation is that badly eroded? I mean, what are the options? Well, the first line of attack is often surgical, and we're talking about some pretty incredible techniques to literally rebuild the jaw from the ground up. One of the classic procedures is called a vestibuloplasty. Basically, what the surgeon does is they go in and carefully reposition the muscles in your cheek and lip. They move them from where they're attached high up on that shrunken jaw down to a much lower position. And what this does is it creates a much taller ridge. It's genius, really. All of a sudden, the denture has way more surface area to grip, and that can just dramatically improve its stability. And hey, that's just one tool in the surgical toolkit. They can also do something called ridge augmentation. That's where they use bone grafts to actually add height and width back to the jaw. And then, of course, there's the big one, dental implants. This is where they place posts right into the jawbone that act like brand new tooth roots, creating these solid anchors that a denture can just snap right onto. Talk about stability. But look, surgery isn't always the right answer for everyone, and it's not always what a patient wants. And this is where the real artistry of making dentures comes into play. We're talking about the incredible skill it takes to create a perfectly functional denture on a foundation that's, well, less than ideal. You know, the whole philosophy here really boils down to one thing. The goal is to get the denture to cover the biggest possible area with super close contact to the gums, but without getting in the way of the muscles in your cheeks and tongue. It is an incredibly delicate balancing act. So how do they pull this off? Well, they have some really clever impression techniques. For that waterbed flabby ridge we talked about, they might use a two-step process. First, they use a really light, flowy material to get an impression of that squishy tissue without squishing it down. Then, they come back with a different material to capture all the solid, stable areas around it. What you end up with is this hyper-accurate map of the mouth that shows both the firm parts and the soft parts exactly as they are. And that craftsmanship doesn't stop with the impression. It goes all the way to the materials they choose. See, on a ridge that's already compromised, every little bit of force matters. So a smart dentist will often pick lightweight acrylic teeth instead of the heavier porcelain ones, simply because they put less stress and biting force on those sensitive gums underneath. Okay, So we've covered flat and flabby ridges, but that's not all. Dentists have to deal with a whole bunch of other little anatomical curveballs. So let's do a quick-fire round of some of the other common hurdles they have to overcome. First up, a really tight, strong lower lip. This thing can be a bully, constantly pushing a lower denture up and out of place. The solution? It's all about smart design. You narrow the back teeth to give the lip more room to move, and you extend the denture base all the way back to these little stabilizing areas in the jaw. It's like finding extra anchor points. Next challenge, a high V-shaped palate. Here's the problem. When the pink acrylic of a denture cures, it shrinks just a tiny bit. And in a deep V shape, that can be enough to pull it away from the roof of the mouth and break that crucial suction seal. The clever fix? Use a metal base instead. Metal doesn't shrink, so you get a perfect, stable fit that lasts. All right, last one for the quick round. A large, powerful tongue. A strong tongue can unseat a denture like it's nothing. The real art here is finding what's called the neutral zone. Imagine this perfect little corridor where the force of the tongue pushing out is perfectly canceled out by the force of the cheeks pushing in. If you can set the denture teeth right in that zone, boom, you get incredible stability from the muscles themselves. But you know what? After all of this, the incredible surgery, the masterful denture craftsmanship, all of that is really only half the battle. For any of this to work long-term, it absolutely has to be a partnership between the dentist and the patient. And that partnership comes down to a few really key habits. First, you've got to give your tissues a break. That means taking the denture out for at least 8 hours a day. Second, keep everything clean, your mouth and the denture itself. That's a must. And third, don't be a stranger to your dentist. Those regular checkups are so important because they can catch little issues before they turn into big ones, like nasty tissue problems from a denture that's not fitting right anymore. When you step back and think about it, this whole story of the disappearing jawbone is just such a powerful reminder that our bodies are not static things. They are living, breathing systems that are constantly adapting to whatever we throw at them. And that kind of leaves you with a fascinating question to chew on, right? Knowing this, how else does our body so cleverly adapt to all the changes we go through in our lifetime?